Boss fired her for being too old, but she returned as the company's new owner next morning. The crystal-clear, cold morning light streamed into the state-of-the-art boardroom on the top floor of Kronos Dynamics, illuminating the polished surfaces and casting long, sharp shadows. A tense silence hung in the air, a palpable anticipation mingling with the pungent aroma of strong coffee and the lingering scent of newly polished wood. At the head of the long, gleaming table, Rex Caldwell sat with an air of supreme self-satisfaction, a faint smile playing on his lips as he clicked to the final slide of a sleek presentation summarizing his company's record profits for the last quarter. Beside him, Fiona Stone, the Human Resources Director, maintained her usual icy mask, her fingers idly dancing across the surface of her tablet. Outwardly, everything appeared flawless. The financial reports were impeccable, the projections promising, and the company was soaring, seemingly thanks to Rex's ruthless strategies of cost-cutting and the systematic purging of the older workforce. Yet, in the deepest corner of the room, almost swallowed by the shadows, sat a figure no one seemed to notice, a mere specter in their triumphant narrative. This was Alara Vance, a woman cloaked in an ordinary presence, yet her eyes were sharp, and her mind was far more advanced than anyone else in that room. Within her, a silent storm churned, recording every self-congratulatory word from Rex, every indifferent murmur from Fiona. They stood on the precipice of their perceived victory, utterly oblivious to the monumental fall that awaited them. Rex cleared his throat loudly, the sound cutting through the already sharp air of the room. "These latest achievements of our company," he began, his voice booming and clear in the echoing expanse of the room, "mark the dawn of a new era. By shedding old burdens, eliminating unnecessary costs, and paving the way for innovation, we have transformed Kronos Dynamics into an unrivaled force in this industry." His gaze swept over the board members, eliciting a smattering of polite applause. Some clapped hesitantly, their faces betraying a flicker of unease, while others absorbed Rex's every word with sycophantic approval. Fiona nodded, a cold, almost imperceptible smile gracing her lips. "From an HR perspective, we have clearly witnessed the impact of the aging workforce on efficiency. Replacing them with younger, more energetic, and less costly talent was a strategic imperative. Thanks to Mr. Caldwell's vision, our company is now truly future-ready." Her words were a chilling manifesto of triumph, a declaration of victory over a generation deemed obsolete and mercilessly discarded. A faint, almost undetectable smile played on Alara's lips in the shadows. It was a smile laced with irony, sorrow, and a terrifying determination. No one in the room could sense the power behind that smile. It was the smile of a woman poised to reclaim dominion not just over this company, but over their entire world. Rex beamed, basking in the zenith of his perceived triumph. "This morning, the board will finally grant full approval to my vision. With a few simple signatures, the future of Kronos Dynamics will be secured, and undoubtedly." His words hung in the air, unfinished. From the corner of the room, an almost inaudible sound broke the silence, a gentle clearing of the throat from the previously unnoticed figure. This slight interruption, audacious in its timing, dared to cut short Rex's self-assured monologue. Alara lifted her gaze, fixing her eyes directly on Rex. Her voice was soft, yet it possessed an iron resolve that resonated through the room. "Actually, Mr. Caldwell," she stated, her words echoing clearly and coldly, "the game is over." These words hung in the air like the ominous calm before a storm, a silent warning heralding the coming devastation. Rex and Fiona stared blankly at Alara, their faces a mixture of disdain and confusion. To them, this elderly woman was either lost, or perhaps simply losing her mind. In that moment, Alara knew her revenge would be sweet, a precise and deliberate act of justice. Alara Vance, throughout her 78 years, had been one of the quiet, sagacious architects of the technological world. Nexus Innovations, the colossal conglomerate she had founded decades ago, stood as a testament to her visionary spirit. Yet, as the years passed and she gradually receded from daily operations, a profound shift began to ripple through the heart of Nexus. Its once people-centric culture, built on values of respect, innovation, and long-term investment in its employees, slowly, insidiously, transformed into an obsession with profit margins and ruthless efficiency. Her heart had often ached with the awareness of this change, a gnawing discomfort that grew with each passing year. Lately, whispers had reached her, faint at first, then growing in their chilling clarity, tales of age discrimination, of brutal cost-cutting measures that sliced through the company's very soul, and a cold, corporate callousness that had taken root deep within the organization. These were values Alara had never endorsed. Indeed, they were principles she had actively fought against in her youth, building Nexus on the antithesis of such practices. These whispers, like insidious tendrils, fed the unrest within her, turning a quiet concern into a burning resolve. In her prime, Alara had been a leader passionately devoted to her work, deeply valuing her employees. She believed each individual was not merely a cog in a machine, but an integral part of the human spirit that powered innovation. She had inextricably linked her company's success not only to financial statements, but also to the happiness of her employees and their boundless, creative spirit. It was an ethos she had enshrined in Nexus's original charter, a commitment to nurture talent throughout an individual's career, valuing wisdom and experience as much as youthful dynamism. Yet, she came to realize that the new generation of executives, to whom she had gradually relinquished control, had forgotten these foundational values. Kronos Dynamics, a key subsidiary, was rumored to be at the vanguard of this brutal transformation. The names of Rex Caldwell and his human resources director, Fiona Stone, frequently surfaced in these disturbing whispers. They had championed a philosophy that argued older employees were outdated and costly, a burden to be shed for the sake of quarterly reports. This realization cut a deep wound in Alara's soul. To witness her own empire, her life's work, flagrantly violating its most fundamental ethical principles, was unbearable. The very foundation of her legacy was crumbling. Phone calls, meeting transcripts, and internal reports merely scratched the surface, presenting a sanitized, corporate version of reality. Alara knew the truth lay beyond the official documents, hidden in the lives of those directly affected. To truly understand what people thought, what they felt, she had to be among them, to live their experience. Her trust had been irrevocably shaken. This was no mere financial audit. It was an audit of the company's very soul, a desperate attempt to diagnose a terminal illness before it consumed everything. Alara heeded the call of her inner founder, the primal instinct that had guided her through countless market upheavals. If she truly wanted to understand her company's sickness, she had to infiltrate it. She needed to become an invisible observer, positioned in the most vulnerable place, standing shoulder to shoulder with those who were suffering the most. Her plan was complex in its details, yet deceptively simple in its execution. She would go undercover. She would transform herself into Agnes, an elderly woman in her late 70s, seemingly unsophisticated about technology, slow, a little forgetful, and endearingly gentle. This carefully constructed persona would allow Alara to mask her formidable intellect and unwavering determination, casting her as an ordinary, even pitiable, worker. Her initial step was to assemble a small, trusted team from her private staff. Makeup and prosthetic specialists, voice coaches, and consultants trained in mimicking the nuances of elderly body language were enlisted. Alara spent months preparing for this demanding role, dedicating herself to every minute detail. Her silver hair was meticulously dyed a dull, mousy gray, and she allowed her natural skin to develop the age spots she had previously fought to conceal. She practiced a slightly stooped posture, a slower, shuffling gait, and even developed a subtle tremor in her hands. Her clothes were simple, slightly worn but impeccably clean, designed not to attract attention but to blend seamlessly into the background, to evoke a sense of quiet resignation. She altered her speech, choosing her words more slowly, softening her voice to a gentle, somewhat fragile tone. A detailed backstory was meticulously fabricated for Agnes, a woman far removed from the world of technology, who had devoted long years to her family and a simple life, but now, after a series of unfortunate events, a late husband's unexpected medical bills, a struggling child, a pension that barely covered rent, found herself compelled to return to work. She was proud, yet visibly in need of assistance. This narrative would position her as the most vulnerable target for age discrimination, an ideal candidate to experience the company's harsh policies firsthand. She would apply for a data entry position, a seemingly innocuous role that would allow her to feel the company's pulse from its lowest rung, to witness the raw, unfiltered reality of its internal workings. From this vantage point, she would see exactly what was happening, the true impact of Rex Caldwell and Fiona Stone's policies on the rank-and-file employees. As Alara fully embodied the role of Agnes, the sharp, powerful businesswoman within her receded into silence. Now, she was simply Agnes, an ostensibly innocent victim grappling with the myriad challenges of old age. This was more than just an infiltration. It was a profound test. It was a test not only of Kronos' dynamics but also of her own empire, to see if it still clung to its fundamental values, or if the corruption had spread too wide. And the results of this test, she knew, would be brutally unforgiving. As Alara perfected her plan, she felt the resurgence of the old warrior within her. This was not merely about revenge. It was a mission to reclaim a lost soul, to heal the corrupted heart of her company, to restore the very essence of what she had built. And she was utterly, unshakably determined to fulfill that mission, no matter the personal cost. When Agnes shuffled into the Kronos Dynamics lobby, she seemed to sway slightly with each step, as if the weight of the world pressed down upon her shoulders. Her eyes, wide and curious, gazed up at the towering ceilings and gleaming glass walls, a look of mild bewilderment on her face. This was a carefully constructed mask, a masterfully executed performance by Alara. Yet, within her, every minute detail of the opulent, yet cold, environment was meticulously analyzed, every interaction noted. The receptionist, a young woman with bright, alert eyes, scrutinized Agnes from head to toe, a subtle flicker of surprise crossing her features. The receptionist's expression silently questioned what Agnes could possibly be doing in this modern, fast-paced corporate environment. When Agnes, her voice a little breathy, stated, "I have an interview for a data entry position," the receptionist's eyebrows rose almost imperceptibly, a silent dismissal of the very idea. The first hurdle was the interview with Fiona Stone. Fiona's office, with its stark, modern minimalist design and glass walls, exuded an atmosphere of cold, unapproachable efficiency. Fiona sat behind her desk, engrossed in a tablet, as Agnes slowly entered. When the HR director finally looked up, a momentary flash of disappointment, almost a sneer, crossed her face. Seeing Agnes, Fiona adopted an expression that suggested she had dialed the wrong number, a look of thinly veiled contempt. "Miss Agnes, isn't it?" she asked, her voice laced with a saccharine politeness that barely concealed her disdain. "Please have a seat." Agnes settled slowly into the chair, each movement appearing to cause her discomfort, her posture reflecting a lifetime of humble existence. The interview felt less like a conversation and more like an interrogation. Fiona's eyes narrowed with thinly disguised mockery as she scanned Agnes's resume. "You have so many years of experience," she stated, drawing out the word experience as if it were an accusation rather than a qualification. "But how adaptable are you to technology? Programs constantly change. Speed is crucial. Have you ever worked in such a dynamic environment before?" Agnes replied in a tremulous voice, carefully modulated to convey vulnerability. "I am eager to learn, madam. I am diligent, and I have always adapted to new things in the past." Fiona offered a condescending smile, her lips barely curving. "Your diligence is commendable, Ms. Agnes, but our company is built on efficiency. Error rates must be near zero, and speed is paramount. This position is designed for young, dynamic candidates." Fiona's emphasis on Agnes's age and apparent fragility clearly conveyed her judgment. Agnes was deemed inadequate for the role. Agnes, as Alara, harbored not the slightest shred of hope that she would be hired. Indeed, this was precisely the outcome she had anticipated and meticulously planned for. Every word from Fiona was meticulously recorded in Alara's mind: the casual cruelty, the dismissive contempt, the blatant age discrimination. Against all expectations, Agnes was hired. This, Alara would later learn, was Fiona's cynical attempt to fill a diversity quota, a hollow gesture designed to superficially improve the company's public image by hiring a single elderly employee. Agnes's first weeks were a meticulous, deliberate form of torture. Her assigned desk was in the furthest corner, directly under a relentlessly blowing air conditioner, a cold, desolate island in a sea of bustling youth. Her computer was an ancient relic, its software constantly crashing, its keys sticking with frustrating regularity. Her younger colleagues either regarded her with pitying glances or simply ignored her altogether, their conversations stopping abruptly when she approached. No one offered to help her. No one took the time to patiently teach her the new systems. Even the simplest tasks became an impossible ordeal for Agnes. Each data entry felt like an arduous climb up a steep, insurmountable mountain. One afternoon, as Agnes stared helplessly at her jammed keyboard, a young man from the adjacent desk leaned over. This was Leo. His tired eyes, disheveled hair, and cheap, wrinkled clothes spoke of struggles, yet his face held a genuine, unmistakable kindness. "Do you need help, Miss Agnes?" he asked, his voice soft and sincere. "The keyboard sometimes sticks. Mine does too. If you tap it gently here, it usually fixes it." Leo patiently demonstrated how to unstick the key, then quickly returned to his own desk, as if even this small act of kindness was a luxury he couldn't afford to waste time on. Alara, beneath Agnes's unassuming facade, took note of this small yet profound gesture. It was the first true flicker of humanity she had encountered within these cold corporate walls. In the days that followed, a quiet, unspoken bond began to form between Leo and Agnes. Leo, seeing Agnes often eating alone, invited her to join him for lunch in their designated, uninspiring corner. Agnes noticed that his lunchbox often contained only simple sandwiches and an apple, revealing his own struggles and limited means. Leo patiently taught Agnes, or rather, Alara in disguise, how to navigate the new software, guiding her through the bewildering interfaces. While others scorned her slowness, Leo took her hand, metaphorically and sometimes literally, showing her how to properly hold the mouse, how to click with precision, how to input data efficiently. He encouraged her with every small success, celebrating her incremental progress. Leo himself was clearly burdened by a crushing workload. He often worked late into the evenings, constantly received scolding from his demanding boss, yet he never hesitated to offer help to Agnes. Agnes listened intently to his story, piecing together the fragments of his life. The young man was struggling to support his family, pay off crippling student loans, and somehow, against all odds, build his dream technology startup in his sparse free time. His father had been ill for a long time, the family's sole breadwinner, and now Leo carried that immense weight. This was why he endured such immense pressure at Kronos Dynamics, why he clung to the job despite the soul-crushing environment. Leo expressed his deep discomfort with the corporate corruption he witnessed daily, and especially with the blatant age discrimination. Just a few days ago, they let Ms. Albright go, someone who had worked here for 15 years and always delivered top performance, simply because she was slowing down, he whispered once, his voice heavy with disillusionment. "This place, it used to be great, Miss Agnes. People used to help each other." As Agnes listened to Leo's words, the voice of Alara Vance within her surged, growing louder, more insistent. This was the proof she had been seeking, the irrefutable evidence. Rex and Fiona were not merely cutting costs. They were systematically slaughtering the very soul of the company she had painstakingly built, corroding its foundations with their ruthless efficiency. One afternoon, Rex Caldwell, ever the imposing figure, strolled through the open-plan office, his presence radiating an air of judgmental authority. His eyes, sharp and critical, landed on Agnes's desk. Agnes was slowly pecking at her antiquated computer, her brow furrowed in concentration. Rex stopped beside her, a look of thinly veiled contempt on his face. "Miss Agnes," he said, his voice dripping with such mockery that other employees nearby lifted their heads, their eyes darting to the scene. "I've reviewed your productivity reports. Frankly, we cannot continue at this pace. In a first-class technology company, A situation where even a robot could input data faster than you is simply unacceptable. Agnes slowly lifted her head. Her eyes, beneath their feigned fragility, met Rex's with a steady gaze that belied her outward appearance. Alara felt a surge of incandescent rage rising within her, a volcanic force threatening to shatter the Agnes mask. But she maintained control, her composure unwavering. "I'm sorry, Mr. Caldwell," she said, her voice trembling slightly, perfectly playing the part of a vulnerable, apologetic elder. "I am doing my best." Rex sneered, a cruel, dismissive smile twisting his lips. "Your best, unfortunately, is not enough. Our company looks forward, not backward. And to be frank, you are looking backward." These words, intended to wound and dismiss, struck Agnes's heart like a precise, sharp blade, yet Alara's mind remained calm, clear, and utterly resolute. This was the final blow she had anticipated, the ultimate proof of their heartless disregard for human dignity. The next morning, Agnes was summoned to Fiona Stone's office before her workday even began. Fiona sat at her desk, her eyes as cold as glacial ice, an expression of detached finality on her face. "Ms. Agnes," she said, her voice devoid of emotion, a chillingly professional tone. "We are compelled to terminate your contract with us. Unfortunately, you are not meeting our company's expectations. You are too slow, and frankly, you are struggling to adapt to such a young and dynamic environment." Agnes, her head bowed in feigned dejection, nodded slowly, a mournful expression etched on her face. "I understand," she murmured, her voice barely audible, conveying a sense of resignation. "Thank you." As she turned to leave, she overheard Rex's voice from behind Fiona, a triumphant, dismissive sound. "Sometimes, some people are simply obsolete. We have to make room for innovation, don't we, Fiona?" Both Rex and Fiona shared a condescending chuckle, a sound that grated on Alara's soul. As Agnes exited the company, she noticed Leo cast a sorrowful, understanding glance her way. Leo quietly approached her, his hand reaching out to gently squeeze Agnes's. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Agnes," he whispered, his voice filled with genuine empathy. "You didn't deserve this." This small gesture, a simple act of human kindness amidst a sea of corporate indifference, ignited a powerful spark of hope in Alara's heart. The soul of this company, she realized, was not entirely lost. Leo was a beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness, and Alara was now more determined than ever to protect that light, to ensure it would not be extinguished by the ruthless forces of greed and indifference. Under the guise of a discriminated elderly woman, the master plan of Alara Vance's revenge had now reached its final, critical stage. She would show those who had dismissed her as too old that this old woman, in fact, held their very destinies in her hands. The following morning, the air in the Kronos Dynamics boardroom was thick with tension, a palpable unease that even the gleaming surfaces could not dispel. Rex Caldwell, at the head of the table, appeared noticeably less self-assured than usual. The previous day, he had received a mysterious, urgent summons, an emergency board meeting called by the main board of Nexus Innovations to discuss the future of Kronos Dynamics. No one knew the reason, but such calls, abrupt and unexplained, rarely boded well. Fiona Stone sat beside him, maintaining her usual frigid composure, yet the slight tremor in her fingers, barely perceptible as she gripped her tablet, betrayed her inner anxiety. The tension in the room was a living entity, growing heavier with each passing second. Suddenly, the boardroom door swung open with a decisive thud, and into the room stepped Alara Vance, fully restored to her former glory. She was no longer Agnes. Her silver hair, meticulously styled and gleaming, radiated a vibrancy that defied her years, the mask of fragility completely shed. Her eyes, luminous with the wisdom of decades, sparkled with an intelligent fire, and her face, once disguised by age spots and carefully applied prosthetics, was now sculpted by years of experience and unwavering resolve. She wore a perfectly tailored, deep navy power suit, a garment that exuded authority and quiet opulence. Beside her, Nexus Innovations' formidable chief legal counsel, Mr. Davies, entered, followed by a pair of stern-faced security personnel. Every person in the room froze in stunned disbelief. Rex's arrogant expression slowly, sickeningly, melted away, replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. Fiona's icy mask cracked, her eyes widening to saucers, betraying a terror she rarely displayed. No one in the room understood who this woman was, or why she had appeared with such an air of command. Alara advanced slowly towards the table, her gaze sweeping over Rex and Fiona. She paused for a moment, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips, before addressing them in a voice that was no longer tremulous, but resonated with unwavering authority. "Good morning, Mr. Caldwell, Miss Stone," she began, her words clear, firm, and ringing with an unmistakable power. "It appears you don't recognize me. This is hardly surprising, considering that until a few days ago, I was Agnes, the woman you dismissed for being too old. A profound, chilling silence descended upon the room. Rex's swallow was so loud it seemed to echo, a guttural sound of pure panic. Fiona's face had gone utterly ashen, drained of all color, as if the blood had literally receded from her veins. Both of them stared at Alara in disbelief, their tongues seemingly tied, their minds struggling to process the impossible revelation. Rex stammered, his voice choked with shock. This isn't possible. You were a data entry clerk. This must be some kind of joke." Alara's smile widened, but a dangerous glint ignited in her eyes. "A data entry clerk," she repeated, her voice tinged with biting sarcasm, "and also the founder of Nexus Innovations, the parent company of your Kronos Dynamics." These words exploded in the room like an atomic bomb, sending shockwaves through every corner. A wave of hushed whispers swept through the room as the board members exchanged disbelieving glances, their faces etched with confusion and dawning comprehension. The horror on Rex and Fiona's faces was palpable, as if they were characters trapped in a waking nightmare. Rex, suddenly spurred by a desperate surge of adrenaline, tried to regain his composure, scrambling for a coherent excuse. This is a misunderstanding. We had no idea who you were. We were only acting in the company's best interests." Alara raised a hand, a silent, imperious gesture that commanded his immediate silence. "The company's best interests, Mr. Caldwell," she stated, her voice hardening, "do not involve disregarding the welfare and dignity of its employees. I witnessed firsthand how you and Ms. Stone systematically marginalized loyal, long-serving employees, branding them as slow and obsolete, and then ruthlessly purging them from the organization. I also witnessed, with my own eyes, the simple act of kindness and empathy displayed by a young, talented employee named Leo, even amidst his own struggles. Your policies have corroded the very values upon which this company was built, values that once made it a beacon of innovation and human decency." Alara turned to her chief legal counsel, her gaze unwavering. "Mr. Davies, please distribute the necessary documents." The lawyer, a man whose presence commanded respect, calmly handed a folder to each of the bewildered board members, and then, with a deliberate solemnity, presented identical documents to Rex and Fiona. Rex, his hands trembling uncontrollably, took the papers, his eyes immediately fixating on the bold heading: "Immediate termination of Rex Caldwell's appointment as CEO of Kronos Dynamics." Below it, in equally stark terms, it stated Fiona Stone's immediate dismissal from her role. Both Rex and Fiona stared at Alara, utterly stunned, their eyes reflecting pure, unadulterated desperation. "You are fired, Mr. Caldwell," Alara stated, her voice cold and definitive, leaving no room for argument. "And so are you, Ms. Stone, not only from your positions within this company, but you are also immediately dismissed from all your roles under the Nexus Innovations umbrella. Furthermore, legal proceedings will be initiated for your misuse of company funds for personal gain and for severely damaging our corporate reputation through your discriminatory ageist policies." Rex's face had turned ashen, as white as chalk. "No, this can't be happening. I brought this company to its peak." Fiona, still reeling from the shock, felt a slow, simmering rage begin to bubble to the surface. "This is unjust. We were only trying to be efficient." Alara looked at them with a profound sense of disgust. "You were merely ruthless and greedy. And believe me, that kind of efficiency will never be tolerated in my empire." Alara's eyes drifted to a point across the room, her gaze softening almost imperceptibly. Leo stood frozen in the doorway, a mixture of shock and fear on his face, having heard the commotion from the meeting and trying to comprehend what was unfolding before his very eyes. Alara offered him a faint, reassuring smile. The game, she knew, had only just truly begun. Rex Caldwell and Fiona Stone's downfall was as swift and ruthless as their ascent had once been. As Alara Vance's words echoed in the boardroom, security personnel entered, their presence a stark, undeniable confirmation of the dismissals. They curtly instructed Rex and Fiona to gather their personal belongings. Rex's face was beet red, contorted with a furious mix of rage and humiliation. "You'll regret this," he roared, his voice trembling with impotent fury, his words hollow in the suddenly quiet room. Fiona, meanwhile, remained eerily silent, a frozen mask of shock on her face as she was escorted out of the room. Within minutes, they were ushered out of the very building they had once ruled, their shoulders slumped, their eyes vacant, accompanied by the unyielding presence of security. Company employees, gathered in hushed whispers and wide-eyed astonishment, watched them go. The once mighty CEO and the ruthless HR director were now mere ghosts of the past, their reign reduced to a humiliating public spectacle. Their collapse was not merely professional, it was a total, devastating ruin. Alara immediately ordered a comprehensive audit, a forensic deep dive into their tenure, unearthing every instance of their corruption and unethical decisions. The misuse of company funds for lavish personal expenses, the myriad discrimination lawsuits filed by dismissed employees, and the clandestine agreements that had severely tarnished the company's reputation were systematically exposed, one by one. Rex's personal bank accounts were swiftly frozen. His luxurious mansion, a symbol of his ill-gotten gains, was seized, and his career was utterly, irrevocably destroyed. Fiona shared a similar, equally grim fate. Her name was permanently blacklisted within the industry, ensuring she would never find employment in any reputable company again. She found herself ensnared in a web of legal battles, facing lawsuits from numerous former employees and regulatory bodies. These two figures, who had once stood proudly at the apex of the corporate ladder, now plummeted to the lowest depths of societal disgrace. Their own greed, their own callous disregard for human dignity, had meticulously crafted their undoing. They were now condemned to experience, manifold, the very shame and ostracism Alara had so carefully endured as an old woman. Meanwhile, Leo's world had been turned upside down, then righted in a way he could barely comprehend. He had heard the raised voices from the boardroom, seen the security guards escorting Rex and Fiona, their faces etched with public humiliation. Then, he had witnessed Alara Vance, MS, Agnes, descend from a luxurious limousine, her posture radiating quiet power, and re-enter the company building. His mind reeled, struggling to make sense of the dizzying, bewildering events. When one of Alara's security personnel summoned Leo to her office, his heart hammered against his ribs. He had no idea why he was being called, a cold dread twisting in his stomach. Perhaps he too would be fired for the small acts of kindness he had shown to Rex's victim, for daring to be human. Alara sat in her office, a powerful yet gentle expression on her face, a quiet aura of command emanating from her. "Leo," she began, her voice soft, devoid of any of the chilling authority she had used moments earlier with Rex and Fiona. "I will never forget the kindness and humanity you showed me. You are, without a doubt, the most valuable thing this company still possesses." Leo, still staring at her in stunned silence, could only nod, his mind racing. Alara continued, her words painting a future he had only dared to dream of. "I have an offer for you, Leo. I want you to head Kronos Dynamics' new technology department. I will grant you full autonomy, the freedom to build your own team from the ground up, and unlimited resources to develop your projects. Furthermore, to support you and your family, I will establish a fund to cover all your student debts and ensure all necessary medical expenses for your father's treatment are fully met. And yes, you will also be given a significant share of company stock, vesting over time to secure your future." Leo's eyes welled with tears. He was utterly, profoundly shocked, unable to process the magnitude of her words. Words caught in his throat, a lump of overwhelming emotion preventing him from speaking. I don't know what to say, Miss Agnes. Miss Vance, he stammered, tears streaming down his face, blurring his vision. For the first time in his life, he felt not despair, but a pure, unadulterated gratitude and joy. This was beyond his wildest dreams, beyond anything he had ever dared to hope for. Just a week ago, he was trapped in a deep quagmire of debt, struggling under the weight of his ailing father's medical bills and his own student loans. Now, it was as if all the difficulties of his life had evaporated in an instant. This, he knew, was the reward for his kind heart, for his unwavering belief in human values, even in the face of corporate dehumanization. Alara reached across the desk and gently squeezed his hand, a gesture of quiet affirmation. And not just this, Leo. I also want to give you a special advisory role, one that will help determine the future strategic direction of Kronos Dynamics. I want people like you, young, talented, and with strong ethical values, to rebuild this company from the ground up, to infuse it with the spirit of innovation coupled with compassion. Leo nodded, unable to speak, his chest heaving with silent sobs. This was not merely a job offer. It was a life-saving operation, a lifeline thrown into a sea of despair. Alara had instilled hope back into his life, given wings to his long-dormant dreams. Months cascaded into a year, then another. Kronos Dynamics, under the resolute leadership of Alara Vance and the fresh, dynamic vision of Leo, underwent an astonishing transformation. The company was no longer a cold, profit-driven machine. It had been reborn as a vibrant, ethical entity that valued its employees, prioritized human-centric solutions, and reinvested in true innovation. The very air within its walls felt different, lighter, infused with a newfound sense of purpose and community. Leo, at the helm of the new technology department, was doing a magnificent job. His innate creativity, coupled with his strong, empathetic leadership, had breathed new life into the company, fostering an environment where ideas flourished and collaboration thrived. He was no longer the tired, anxious junior developer burdened by insurmountable debts, but a confident, innovative leader, respected and admired by his peers and subordinates alike. His father, thanks to the high-quality treatment funded by Alara, had begun to recover, regaining his health and vitality. All of Leo's crippling family debts had been completely paid off, lifting an immense weight from his shoulders. Leo was living the best period of his life, a testament to the power of unexpected kindness. Yet he never for a moment forgot the immense favor done to him, nor Alara's profound belief in his potential. Within the company, new programs were launched specifically for older employees. Their invaluable experience was not just appreciated but actively sought out, their wisdom integrated into new projects through mentorship programs. Their skills were continually developed through tailored training, and above all, they were treated with the respect and dignity they deserved. Kronos Dynamics had not only reclaimed its tarnished reputation in the industry, but had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more respected than ever before. Alara Vance, meanwhile, had fully resumed her place at the helm of Nexus Innovations. But this time, her focus extended far beyond mere financial reports. She was intensely concentrated on the very heart and soul of her company, ensuring its values permeated every level of its vast structure. For her, the Agnes experience had been a profound, often painful, lesson. It had vividly shown her how deeply her own empire could decay, yet also how it could be miraculously rescued and revitalized. She had relearned the paramount importance of nurturing young, ethically sound leaders like Leo, individuals who embodied the very principles she had founded Nexus upon. The company now truly reflected the values she had first enshrined within it: innovation, respect, and above all, humanity. Rex Caldwell and Fiona Stone, however, languished in a state of forgotten obscurity and profound misery. Mired in endless legal battles, stripped of their assets and their public image, no trace remained of the luxurious lives they had once led. Their story became a stark, cautionary tale, symbolizing the inevitable downfall brought about by unchecked greed and utter unscrupulousness. Alara, from time to time, would reflect on their downfall, but within her, there was no malice or gloating, only a deep, abiding sadness. They had lost the most valuable thing of all, their own humanity, their capacity for empathy and compassion. This story laid bare a simple yet profound truth of life. A character's true worth and conscience are best revealed in the darkest times, through actions taken without any expectation of reward. Kindness, Alara understood, always has a price, though not always a financial one. Goodness, like a seed, is sown. Sometimes it does not sprout immediately, but when its time comes, it yields the most abundant fruits. Evil, on the other hand, spreads like a venom. Though it may bring a brief, fleeting triumph, it inevitably destroys the one who spreads it. It must never be forgotten that a person's age or outward appearance never determines their true worth or potential. And always, in the most unexpected places, a Leo can be found, a hand extended, a smile offered, a beacon carrying the light of humanity. These lights continue to shine, even in the darkest corporate corridors, and ultimately, they always show the way forward, illuminating the path to integrity and true success. We hope this inspiring story of Alara and Leo has touched you. If you'd like to see more stories like this, ones that remind us that kindness and integrity always find their reward in life, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. So, what are your thoughts on this story? Do you think Rex and Fiona's end was fair? Or was Alara's revenge too harsh? Which character touched you the most and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Every single one of your comments is incredibly valuable to us.